everyone, happy Friday. And today we have our second interview for cracking the data science interview session. So today we have Nick Singh with us. I'll be surprised if you have not seen his posts on LinkedIn. He's pretty active and he posts really amazing things on LinkedIn. So, Nick started his career as a software engineer at Facebook's growth team. And most recently, he was working at SafeGraph, that's a location analytics startup. So even he had a press report about that. He graduated from the University of Virginia with a degree in systems engineer and a minor in computer science and applied mathematics. In college, he interned at Microsoft and on the data infrastructure team at Google's Nest Lab. Now he is the best-selling author for Ace the Data Science Interview, which is pretty similar to Cracking Coding Interview for machine learning and data science. So thank you so much, Nick, for being with us today. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of questions coming your way regarding data science interviews, and very much looking forward to learning from your experience.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to do this. I know we've been talking for quite some time about coming on a live stream, and I know my book's not available everywhere. And I've been going to some colleges, but I haven't been able to talk to too many people about this, not as many people as I want to talk to, which is basically everybody who's on the job hunt or trying to level up in their career. So I'm really glad that you're hosting me today, and I'm really excited to see what questions people have and however I can add value towards helping people ace their data science and machine learning job hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things when I read your book, right, Nick, one of the best things that I like about it was catering to all different portfolios for a data scientist. It wasn't just focusing on like experimenting data scientist or product data scientist. It was catering to different portfolios, and that's something which is very helpful for people who might be interested in different flavors of the data science role in different companies. So that's something I felt was very helpful. And another thing is that you covered a lot of statistical and probability theory stuff, which might not be available in books which are catering to data science in general. So, which was again like very very amazing. So, I wanted to ask you that like how did you think of writing a book like is your data science interviews?
Yeah, I'm glad you like the book. I got a copy here, and just in case no one's actually seen what it looks like, it looks all red and everything. Inspired. Yeah. So honestly, 2020 hit, COVID hit, and I saw my friends, family, college classmates have their offers rescinded. They were on the job hunt or they got laid off. Left and right, people were losing their jobs. And all the while, me and my co-author, Kevin, we were good friends. We went to high school together. And then at Facebook, we both worked at Facebook, him as a data scientist, me as a software engineer on the growth team. We were both sitting there thinking like, cracking the coding interview exists. We have lead code. What's the equivalent look like for data science? Why hasn't anyone written something like this? And people would push back and say, hey, listen, data science is quite a broad field. In coding interviews, it's just like reverse a linked list, do this stuff, like learn data structures and algorithms. Data science and machine learning interviews are so much broader. That's why there's no book. And I said, bullshit. Like, there's a lot that's asked, but I'm sure there are patterns that emerge because I've seen my own patterns emerge working with Kevin, who's interviewed at some of these well known companies. Also for data science, patterns emerge. So we're like, look, why has nobody done this? And we just said, shit, like, it's COVID. We can't go out. We can't do anything. Why don't we go figure out this book? 1 year later, it came out this past August, and it's already a #1 bestseller. So we've been really happy with how well it's been received and like how many people it's been able to help. And it still doesn't cover everything, but in 290 pages, it's certainly the best we've got out there.
That's really amazing. So one of the things which we often get right, like, is a challenge to even get the interviews. Like that's sort of the first step that people struggle with. So do you have like any tips on how do you land your interview with any company or the role that you're looking for?
Absolutely. I have been there. So one of the things I want to let people know is like, even after I had interned at Microsoft and Google, I still struggle to get interviews at some companies. Okay. So it is a grind no matter where you've worked. And there's not like one easy way out. Like, oh, you just work there. It's so easy. No, no, no. I just want to let everyone know it is hard to get job interviews. It doesn't matter if you've already worked at Facebook or Google, it's still tough. So, what's the best way to be getting these job interviews? Okay, I have two main tips. Like, you've probably heard a lot of stuff about networking and this and that, but let me give you two tips that I think other people don't focus nearly enough on, that I talk a lot about in my book, but I also just preach generally because they worked wonders for me. Okay. The first tip is building kick ass portfolio projects.
Yeah.
All right. Not lame, boring ones that you did in class and that you've repurposed to make it look like you've done something on the side.
Yeah.
Not hackathon projects that you did over 12 hours and you sort of never made it go live and you forgot about it after the hackathon ended. We're talking about really impressive, really awesome,
Yeah.
kick ass data science portfolio projects. Here's why I swear that's such a good thing to be building. One, if you build it intelligently and you
Mm-hmm.
build it in a space that you're already passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
you're naturally going to be inclined to spend more than just 12 hours on it, right? Let's be honest, your school homework project, once it's submitted and you get like this, you're done with it. You don't care about it anymore. But a portfolio
Yeah.
project that you actually care about, that you're passionate about, you're going to just keep working on it on the
Yeah.
background during spring break or winter break here and there. That's actually
Yeah.
what hiring managers love to see, because they want to
Yeah.
see and hire people who are actually passionate about their work, that they actually do it after working hours. They do it on the weekend. They're
Yeah.
just doing it because they love data and they love what they're working on,
Yeah.
right? So that's
Yeah.
my first tip. Build something that you're passionate about. And let's be honest, your passion doesn't have to be something like, oh, saving the world or something. Like, there's Apple. I made my
Yeah.
project on hip hop music. Okay. This is not academic. This is not serious, but damn, I love me some Drake. I love me some Lil Wayne. I love me some hip hop. Right. So I made a project around hip hop music. But when I was able to go and interview at these companies
Mhm.
and talk about my hip hop project, they realized, oh, this guy's actually just a passionate person, passionate about data, software, but also music, right?
Yeah.
Now you might be thinking, Aish, does being passionate about music help you in a job interview? Not really,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Here's the crazy thing, a psychology hack. Okay. So I want
Mhm.
people to realize this in the comments.
Mhm.
Like, if this resonates with you, like if this you haven't heard this before, let me know. It's called the halo effect.
Mhm.
The halo effect is when people are not able to attribute things about you correctly. So there's this kind of, it's well known, like if you're beautiful, if you're just an attractive person, people will think you're smarter, nicer, more gentle. They'll think everything more positive just based on the way you look.
Yeah.
That's an unfair thing.
Yeah.
But there's nothing you can do. Like, I look like this, I am how I am, you are how you are. But how do we apply the halo effect in an interview for these
Mhm.
portfolio projects? It actually applies here as well. When you're passionate about hip hop and you're passionate about your portfolio project, people on the other side of the table, the hiring managers, they get confused and they think, oh, this guy's just passionate about data science and my company and my job. He's just a passionate person. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. It does.
It's,
Yeah.
it's you're transferring your own energy, your
Yeah.
own desire and love of hip hop music, for example. When you bring that into an interview context, they walk away thinking this person is just like overall passionate about everything,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
hip hop. So
Yeah.
that's another psychological hack to talk
Yeah.
so interestingly about something, you know?
Yeah.
So build really good portfolio projects. That's my number one thing. Let's look at the comments real quick if someone
Yeah.
has a
Sure.
question about it. Then before I get into tip
Yeah.
number two.
Sure. In the meanwhile,
Um,
like, do you mind like opening up the deck? I see you had an amazing deck for your presentation, which had some portfolio project examples and some tips about like reaching out to the recruiters, etc. So if you can just pull that up in the meanwhile.
Yeah, sure. I'll pull that up. So I see we got some little baby fans from Vinayak. I love that. I like little baby, the baby. What's up, guys?
Somebody's asking
Worldwide
you when's
giveaway.
the giveaway for the book.
Yeah, I think Aish, you might want to talk about that sometime soon too, because I
Yes,
feel like
we will definitely talk about that through the end of the
Aish. Yeah,
presentation.
and what's up, Zach Wilson? Good to see you. Another one of our data squad folks from the Bay Area who loves their LinkedIn as well. I love to see that. Cool. So, and then ideas about portfolio projects, right? So Niraj asked, is there a site for that? Listen, look into your own soul. Again, I said, make it about your passion. If you need a website to tell you your passion, you're shit out of luck, right? Like, what do you like to do? Do you like cricket? Do you like music? Do you like customer analytics? Do you like healthcare?
Yeah.
There's a data sound Kaggle for each one of them. So
Yeah.
let the Kaggle help you like really narrow down your ideas, but just like on Kaggle, go search up whatever you like to do when you're not working. I
Yeah.
saw Aishwarya. I love Indian food. I love Indian food. I love my paneer and my tikka masala. I love everything Indian food. There's a whole data set of just Indian food recipes on
Mhm.
Kaggle, right?
Yeah.
So there's some really niche stuff. And I wanted to do a project about like different types of paneer and masalas and North Indian or South Indian cooking and quantifying like how often coconut is there in different curries. I mean, there's so much out there. So you don't need a website to tell you what's a good idea. If you like Indian food, there's a data set right there about Indian food. If you like the
Yeah.
company Instacart for grocery delivery, or you're curious about mobility and transportation, there's data sets about taxis and ridership. If you want to do self-driving cars, there's a
Yeah.
data set from Lyft with actual labeled images where you can help kind of build out your own self-driving car algorithm. Like even
Yeah.
something as crazy as self-driving cars, if you want to work at Tesla or
Yeah.
Waymo or Neuro, there are
Yeah.
data sets out there that you can work on today for free to do a recruiter or hiring manager that you like this space, and B, you're actually technically skilled in a way that a
Yeah.
certification or going to college or whatever, those are great things. But like
Yeah.
building a self-driving RC car, with a little like Raspberry Pi and a little webcam that drives itself, you film that in YouTube, 30-second clip, that will go viral on LinkedIn, that'll go viral on YouTube. That will show me more about you as an engineer, machine learning, and data scientist person, that
Yeah.
little RC car, than any kind of degree or any kind of
Yeah.
like,
Absolutely.
IBM or Google data analyst certification.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Nick. Like, I can just throw in a few ideas about what I did. So I was very passionate about like United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I was very interested to see what they have for like climate change, what they have for saving ocean lives, etc. So I pulled in that information. Again, all data is available for free. So I built a dashboard around that, like did some modeling, and then had like a predictive model predicting where the goals would be in the near future. Had a Bayesian model which was predicting how would the changes look like in the future, etc. So these are something that you can do. Like as Nick said, data is available. A lot of data is available for free. A lot of open source data sets are there. It just depends on what you're really interested in. I mean, like you can be interested in yoga, right? Like I'm interested in yoga. There's probably you can build a computer vision model using yoga. So
100%.
yeah.
Pose detection right there. Like people, there's crazy stuff, and just Google search it. You're gonna be surprised. When I found out there was an Indian recipe, not even general recipes, Indian recipe data set, so I could do some paneer analytics. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, there's got to be data for any hobby, because if I can analyze paneer and
Yeah.
chicken tikka masala, then I'm sure anything can be done. So
Yeah.
someone, I think Kashtab asked a really great question. How much do you focus on the interesting data science, and how much do you focus on like the showmanship? Honestly, if you're just trying to get hired, they're not going to look at your 7,000 lines of code and look at like line 800 and be like, wow, that was a really smart model decision, or like, I love the way you pre-process that data. No, 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 no. They're
Yeah.
going to just look at like, hey, what's a cool encapsulation of the work you've done? And this is why another big advice I give people is think about visualization first. Like, how are you going to demonstrate to people that you did your work? Okay, because this is called legibility,
Yeah.
right? It's not enough to just have done it. It's enough you need to prove you've done it. Okay,
Yeah.
so what's legible? So when I talked about the RC car, I'm not thinking about the Raspberry Pi or the machine learning. I'm first thinking like, yo, how cool would it be if I had like a little self-driving car, a 15-second GIF or a video or a TikTok of my little car driving itself in my house?
Yeah.
How dope would that be, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want to think about. Why? Because when you send a cold email or you post it on LinkedIn or you do anything with that project, people will
Yeah.
remember you. People will think, wow, this person went above and beyond.
Yeah.
And they're not thinking about it because you wrote 7,000 lines of Python. They're thinking, wow, that's a really cool little project they made, right? So what I
Yeah.
like to do is, I don't know if there's some feedback or something, but what I like to do is think about the visual first. So think about it. Could there be an interesting GIF? Could there be an interactive Tableau dashboard? Tableau is free. Okay. There's free data sets that you can just put into Tableau, visualize, make a dashboard. You don't need machine learning for that. You don't need to be doing any modeling. This is just data visualization, some simple summarying if you're looking for more of a BI role or data analyst role. That's possible, and that will be more interesting and fun than most projects, which are really complex and then I just don't understand what they did. If you can make a public Tableau dashboard and just email that to a hiring manager and say, listen, I love healthcare. I looked at healthcare spending data across the top 60 countries and looked at their GDP to healthcare spending ratio. You put that in a Tableau dashboard, no machine learning, no deep learning, none of that bullshit. Just a very simple thing. You put in a Tableau dashboard and you send it to hiring managers. People are going to be like, wow, this person actually cares about healthcare and they have some skill, and they'll usually get back to you at a higher percentage. Now, of course, none of this is foolproof, right? And I think we've also talked about this. This job hunting game is a numbers game, right? So I'm not trying to say if you do this one thing, you're gonna definitely get a job. But all I can say is instead of having to apply to 50 jobs to get a job offer, maybe that's down to 25. None of it's gonna ever be at the level of like, oh, you only applied to 3 places, you got one job. No, if we can just even double your response, double your interview rate, you're in business. We're making progress here, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So one of the questions that Costa was like following up with is he's asking that not about showmanship, but what's the point of writing like scripted models versus something that's going to be holding up in production. So that's a very good question. So I think like he's trying to understand that would portfolio projects which show machine learning operations, right? Like building models in production, deploying them, and like integrating in them in some application uh, are those kind of um, are those kind of portfolio projects helpful?
Of course, right? So especially these days, we talk about ML ops and how just building a model isn't enough. It's about serving it and productionizing it and like maintaining it. So I
Yeah,
think those are valuable skills, but I just want to like clarify one more time. They're going to be looking at the robustness of your code, the cleanliness of your code, maybe. First, they're going to first see like what did you build and like what's the image. Does that make sense? You really have to click in and really deep dive to be like, oh, is this person writing really good code and like how have they like maintained their model, right? And let's be honest, a recruiter is never going to be doing this. And who's the one giving you these interviews? It's the recruiters often who don't even know any of this technical stuff, who won't even read your code, who don't even know how to read code, who are going to be giving you your interview, right? But they do know how to watch a 15-second video or GIF, or they know how to look at a Tableau dashboard and click
yeah,
around,
yeah,
right? And that's kind of why I just want to reorient how, yes, all those things are nice to have, but realize it's a recruiter who's going to be giving you the interview. So all those other things are nice to haves, but like we're going to have to optimize for the recruiter. Secondly, you might be thinking, hey, Nick, but at this so-and-so company, a hiring manager gave me an interview. Still, the hiring manager is looking at a stack of 200 resumes.
yeah,
So maybe they're spending 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds with you.
yeah,
But I can't tell clean code in 30 seconds. Like I can't even click to the GitHub link fast enough. All I can see is, oh, what did you do? How much data was it? What kind of model did you use? Oh, where did they work? Okay, great. They seem like they have some experience. They did something. Okay, great. We'll interview them, right?
yeah,
Now,
sure.
Kashtab, what you're talking about, like where they really would dive in, would be while you're already in the interview, right? But listen, we're talking about how do we get interviews in the first place, right? If we're already sitting face to face with somebody and interviewing with them, you're already way further than most people are for most companies, right? So then how do you interview better? That starts to take
Yeah,
um, like those tips start to matter. But again,
yeah,
that's so down the funnel. Right now, we're just talking about how do we even get the interview. And for
yeah,
that, like honestly, I don't really know much about ML ops to judge you in 10 seconds.
yeah,
Is this, I just want to know what did you do? How much data was there? Was it cool?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So here's another interesting question. So Vasu is asking that how would one determine if they are a good fit for research?
I'll be honest, I'm not a great answer for it. I'm not someone who's been very researchy. I'll tell you my personal experience, how I know I'm not a good fit for research, because I just love jumping around in my own career. I love jumping around in my interests. And I'm not good at sitting down with one problem and getting really deep in it. I'm definitely someone who likes breadth versus depth. So I know that's how I'm not a good fit. I don't know too much about research or research roles. I do know at companies like Facebook and Google, they have research data scientists or research machine learning people. But usually those are all PhD positions for which, of course, to even get a PhD these days, to be admitted, you have to do research. So yeah,
Yeah.
out of principle, like how do I know if you like research or not? I have no idea. I don't like
Yeah.
research, and I did it a little bit. I mean, the only cop out answer is just do it and see if it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I second you on that. So one of my experiences was that when I was in my undergrad, I was focusing on research, and my plan was to pursue a PhD after my undergrad. But somehow I thought of like doing a master's and then deciding for myself if I want to stretch that as a PhD or just end it as a master's. So when I got into Columbia, I realized that what motivates me is to see the results, like to see the purpose of things, or like see a business value out of things. So that is what was giving me better joy than working on something heads down for hours or for years. So that's the difference I felt. Like I spoke with a lot of PhD students at Columbia, and uh, the things that they used to do day to day was not something I was interested to do. So that's the basic rule that I followed, that hey, like this is not something I want to do day to day. So what is it that I like to do day to day, and like what really motivates me, what kind of results really motivate me. So for some people it might be like just solving an equation and saying that hence proved, like something like around that. But for me it was basically around like what problem is this solving. Like I see that there's a drought situation in California. Is there anything that I can do as a data scientist to solve that? And can that really have an impact? So that is what motivated me. So yeah, I mean that's something you can assess for yourself, that what do you like, understand what a researcher does on a day to day, what skills are needed for being a researcher, are you interested in growing that skills, and are you interested in doing that day to day for yourself. So yeah.
I just got to answer one question because people are going to keep asking. I'm probably going to talk about it at the end too. Everyone wants to know, when is this book going to be in India?
Yeah.
Guys, the book is self-published, so that's why it's like not available in all 100 countries. It's wherever Amazon made it easy. But I'm in the process of making the book available in India. So this is the first time I'm saying it, but I'm hoping to have it done in like about a month and a half. And definitely before I visit India, I'm going to India this winter break around Christmas time. So I'm hoping the book will be done and I'll have some parties and like launch events in India, in Delhi,
Mhm.
Lucknow and Delhi, and maybe Bangalore as well. But yeah, the book's not available in India, sadly. But if you go on my website, nicksingh.com, you'll see a bunch of resources, as well as on Ace the Data Science interview. You'll see some resources, and I'll put that in the comments. But I just want to like call that out because I know almost every post now people ask me like, "Hey, this is great, but when's it in India?" So sorry about that, guys. But yeah, I'm working my hardest.
That's great. Okay, so one of the things I had in my mind, Nick, I had read your blog about like email tips, like cold email tips to land your dream job. So is can you like maybe summarize that for the audience, that how do you cold email when you're trying to get an interview?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the first big tip on getting these interviews in the first place is portfolio projects. And the second big tip is cold email. So you teed me up right perfectly. That was exactly number two. So cold emailing is basically where you reach out to folks that you don't know. That's opposed to like a warm introduction where you're introduced by somebody else to somebody. Man, cold email is one of those things that people are very shy or nervous to do, or if they do it terribly. So I love talking about it because I think when done well, it's a very effective. But
Yeah.
when not done well, it's incredibly spammy or annoying, and like it's just a waste of time. So
Yeah.
the first rule for cold emailing, sending these unsolicited emails or LinkedIn DMs or Twitter DMs, is be respond worthy. Like, let's be honest. Why should they get back to you? Right. So I always see these like one line messages like, "Sir, please help me." I'm like, what? There's no context. Like, I get 700 of them like a week. And "Sir, help me" is like, I don't even know what that means. Right.
Yeah.
This is where you have to actually build a portfolio project, because that's showing that you actually cared enough to work on something, right? So instead of saying to a healthcare company, "Sir, please, I love healthcare," you should write, "Hey, I'm so and so. I just built a project that visualized spending and healthcare data. You can check it out right here. I was curious. Do you guys have any open positions for data science on your team? I would really
Mhm.
love to apply."
Yeah.
Boom. even if they don't get back to you, at least they have something like, oh, this person said who they were. They said why they're trying to connect with me. They didn't leave it as a vague like hi. It's a lot of people write hi to me. I'm just like,
Yeah.
hi, I don't know, and like I don't respond to them anymore. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So and some people think that they're being overly forward or pushy when they're like, hey, like I want to know if there's a position on your team, but
Mhm.
that's totally okay if you're relevant.
Yeah.
Relevant meaning, hey, I made an RC car that drives itself. I'm really interested in computer vision. I know
Yeah.
your company does a lot of work with computer vision, or you're the head of computer vision at this company.
Yeah.
I would love to interview with you. Like, do you have some time? Right?
Yeah.
That's suddenly 10x better, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of the first thing. Like
Yeah.
cold emailing works really well, but there's no like magic bullet like, oh, you just send an
Yeah.
email to respond to you. You still have to be respond worthy. So what makes you respond worthy? Portfolio projects that are actually linked and relevant, that showcase that you are actually somebody who does the damn work, who's not just kind of time waste, who's not just writing randomly, but actually has some technical skills and has some real meat behind them.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you name drop what's good about you. Like, this is not the time to be shy. I would start my emails with like, hey, I'm a former data infrastructure engineer at Google. Interest. So
Yeah.
suddenly they're clicking like, oh, he worked at Google. That's good enough, right? But you can always, let's say you went to IIT, go write that. You went to MIT, go write that.
Yeah.
You worked at ATM, or you worked at Ola, or you worked at Uber, or you worked at Airbnb. Go mention that right in the sentence one. I'm a former software engineer at Walmart Labs.
Yeah.
Interested in computer vision. Here's my project. Do you have time to talk? That's
Yeah.
probably my biggest tip.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's completely irrelevant when somebody emails you, or like even on LinkedIn, right? Like when you're reaching out to people, it's very important to give them context rather than be like, "Hey, can you give me a job?" or like, "Hey, I'm looking for a job, please help." Things like that, which is
Yep.
no context towards it. And another thing, like with respect to asking for referrals, right? Like when you're trying to ask people for referrals to apply for a job, I think a lot of people like asking for referrals from people you might not know really well is not something which is totally wrong. But again, like as you mentioned, we have to be more respectful of their time, and we have to give them context. You can't just be like, hey, I'm interested in to work at Google, give me a referral. Like you have to be giving them more context to it, that they feel
Right.
that like you might be a good candidate for them to refer.
Right. Exactly. And then especially a company like Google, like this cold emailing thing works especially good at smaller companies, startups, and things like that. Like, because let's be honest, like Google does everything, so it's hard to be like, hey, here's my portfolio project. That's like, unless you made a search engine, which is
Yeah.
cool. You know what I mean? But smaller companies, this works really well. And believe me, I think there's a big fixation on FANG jobs, or like trying to work at Facebook and Google, but there's plenty of really interesting smaller companies, startups, and things like that, where if you're on the job hunt and you want to go work at this smaller startup and they're in fintech, to do an actual project in fintech gets you way further ahead than just trying to spam 600 people at Google generically and say, hey, give me an interview.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally correct. One more thing, like Nick, I this is something which had come to me earlier as well. That when I try to interview, right, I try to see not just that the company is interviewing you, but it is equally your responsibility to interview the company, like the team that you're going into. So it's equally important for you that you understand what's the day in day out job for you if you are planning to join the team. What is like the composition of the team, etc. So do you have any tips, like on what could be the questions that you can ask? How do you interview the company back to make sure that they are a good for your, like, your career?
Yeah. So, I mean, I just want to take a 1 second break. Can
Yeah.
everyone spam the emojis? I don't know. Like, how do we get it so that all these emojis just fly on the screen? Or can everyone just like hit the like or celebrate or something like that? I
Maybe.
love when on these lives, I haven't done too many of them, but just goes crazy. I don't know, man. If you're enjoying it, or if you're live with me, I see there's like 203 people on this stream. Like, let me know. Like, just give a comment if you're actually here paying attention, if it's making sense. Because I see questions coming in, but like I just want to know what's resonating, what's making sense. So
Yeah.
if you're like alive, you're watching this, the 204 of you, just hit it with a thumbs up real quick, or yeah. So To answer your specific question, how do you interview a company, right? That's what you're asking?
Yeah.
I would say you don't.
Okay.
So here's my little contrarian advice, okay?
Mhm.
People say that interviewing is a two-way street. They're
Mhm.
interviewing you, you're interviewing them,
Mhm.
but I don't really buy into that. Here's the
Okay.
thing. You're there to get a job until they have given you a offer letter.
Mhm.
They're interviewing you, you're not really interviewing them, okay? And
Yeah.
here is why I say this. It's a mindset thing. Like,
Mhm.
I know someone in the comments would be like, "Oh, no, 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 it is a two-way thing," like, but here's the mindset about it,
Mhm.
okay? If you there's It's so easy. Remember in grade school, you'd play a game or you play tag, and then you'd lose, and you'd be like, "Well, I didn't wanna win anyway." You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Or, "I wasn't really trying," right?
Yeah.
People use this as like, "Oh, well, they did something wrong to me. I don't really even wanna work there anymore anyway." But they usually give this kind of rationalization at the
Yeah.
end after they've been rejected, right? So
Yeah.
what I say is keep the mindset of it doesn't matter what the company does, unless they do something really, really messed up.
Mhm.
Okay, then you can be like, "Yo, this is stupid. Like, I'm not gonna interview with you guys." But if it's just like a minor inconvenience or like a minor like, "Oh, that's a little weird," or maybe that's a red flag, I
Yeah.
would towards the end, and I would just keep my mindset as like, "Hey, look, this is still a really great company. I need to get the offer." It's a mindset thing because the second you
Yeah.
start like looking for holes on their end, you
Yeah.
sound less passionate about the job and the
Yeah.
opportunity, and guess what? Your chance of getting an offer goes down because it's really hard to hide that you suddenly got disinterested, right? Because all of this interviewing is about you showing you are interested, you are passionate about the
Yeah.
opportunity. That's so much of what being a good interviewee is about. Sure, technical skills matters, where you went to college matters, what you worked on matters, but like just being a good interested person about this job, your
Yeah.
interviewer, the hiring team really does matter because I hate to be, you know, at the end of the day, you're not working with robots. You're working with people, and people want to work with other people that they like. They
Yeah.
want to work with people who are passionate about the same things they are, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I just want to give that caveat of like, let's like not go looking for red flags immediately. Like, let's first get the offer, and if
Mhm.
you do notice some things that you want to ask about, go ask about them at the end of the interview, or ask them after you've gotten a written offer. And
Got it.
especially at a company like Facebook or Google or Amazon,
Mhm.
between Reddit and Blind and Glassdoor, so many things are out there that it's just sort of like why even worry about looking for red flags? Like some people are like, "Oh, Facebook did this one thing. The interviewer was mean to me." I'm like, "Yeah, that might be true, but like the company's like 80,000 people, like if that's the reason you don't want to interview with Facebook and like not get this amazing salary, that's
Yeah.
fine. It's just one person. Like I
Yeah.
don't know what to say, So I just don't like looking for red flags, honestly, in interviewing. I just like try to
Mhm.
get the offer, and
Yeah.
then once I have the offer, I go talk to the hiring manager and say, "Listen, I'm really excited about the opportunity, but I'm really curious about the work-life balance, or I'm really curious about this thing that's been gnawing at me," right? And
Yeah.
asking about the work-life balance right on interview 1 before they've even been
Yeah.
interviewed for
Yeah.
the job is just like, why? Like, why do you wanna ask about time off and work-life balance and this and that on
Yeah.
interview 1? It
Yeah.
doesn't help you. It can only be neutral or hurt you, you
Yeah,
know?
I agree. I agree to that. So also, Nick, like I think we have somewhere experienced interviews having behavioral set, right? Like they have like a section of interviews where they're trying to have your like behavioral interview. So what do you think about that? Like what are they trying to assess in that interviews, and how do you prepare for that?
Perfect. So, an behavioral interview is primarily looking for 3 things. 1, soft skills. 2, position fit. 3, culture fit.
Mhm.
Um, so hold on. Did you just disappear? Are we still
No,
live?
I didn't. I put you big on the screen.
Oh, okay.
You're more clear.
Yay. Okay, cool. Hi guys. Wow. I've never had so much attention, 182 of you looking, and probably all around the world, right? Like, where are you guys coming from real quick? I know there's a
Yeah,
lot of people from
if
India.
everybody can put out their country on
Yeah.
the
Where
comment.
you guys, or put your city in. Put
Put
your
your city
city in.
in, yeah.
I wanna see who's repping where. I know there's some people from London on. I know, Kashta, I think you're in Australia somewhere. I know a lot of people are from India, so just comment. I'm always curious, and that will help me know where to visit because I told you I think this winter I'm going to be visiting Delhi, Lucknow, and maybe Bangalore. And I kind of want to do events with local colleges and like make it open to the public for free, just like, invite people. So I just want to know where people are at so I can know where to visit. But okay, back to the regularly scheduled
Yeah.
programming. 3 things we got to look for. One, soft skills, right? Let's be honest, data science, it's all about working with these external stakeholders,
Mhm.
other product managers, business analysts, engineering managers, data infrastructure people. How are you going to work and communicate with all these people if you have poor
Mhm.
soft skills, if you're not confident in the way you talk, if you can't advocate for your business recommendation that's based on data, right?
Yeah.
So this is why soft skills is important for jobs like data science, data analyst, and machine
Yeah.
learning, because it's such a cross-functional job. You're not just going to be siloed there like a software engineer sitting there and coding all day and day out without
Yeah.
talking to anybody. Okay.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
second thing they're looking for is position fit, which is, listen, you might be a great person, but are you right for this job? This
Yeah.
specific like type of role, like, are you really a data analyst, but this is a data scientist we need? Or are you a machine learning engineer, but we really need a data analyst? Like, what do we need? And does this person match what we need?
Yeah.
Right. So
Agree.
smaller companies, they might need more like infrastructure and data infra skills because, hey, there's not such mature um, data infra to work. It's a lot of data engineering too. And maybe at a big company, there's no modeling involved because they have like PhDs and like masters in computer science and like academics doing modeling. And maybe all you are need to do is like be a glorified data analyst. Like at
Yeah.
Facebook,
Yeah.
many of the data scientists are called product data scientists. And I hate to say it,
Mhm.
but they're almost like glorified data analysts because they're not building really complex models. If you're a data scientist at Facebook, most of them are actually just doing kind of like analysis of user data and trying to figure out what should we build next. So it's a lot more
Mhm.
like exploratory data analysis and a lot less model building,
Got
right?
it.
So that's just trying to see if your background fits in with that.
Hmm.
And then the last thing to be checking out is culture fit, which is like, look, companies have different values and different things that they look for.
Hmm.
So they want to just see if you match the culture fit. So how do you get a really good? Actually, can I see your face? I want to see you again. This is
Yeah.
weird.
I'm here.
Okay, great.
I'm just here. I just wanted to
Amazing.
put you big on the screen so
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate it. Because I'm like talking to myself, and it's just like, dude, like,
Okay. Yeah. I'll
anyways,
be here.
it's all good. It's all
Give you
good. Yeah.
company.
Also, you're better looking than I am, so I don't want just people like zoomed in on me, just like looking at all this crazy stuff. Um, so so the last thing is culture fit, right? And culture fit's about looking at the company values beforehand, before you interview, and then thinking of stories on how you embody those cultural values, right? So Amazon is really big on this, for example. Amazon has these things called the leadership principles. But even a company like Google has this thing called googliness. And what you want to do is go do your research before you interview and then think of the stories beforehand that embody each of the cultural values. Okay. Now, here's something, Aishwarya, that I've seen a lot of people mess up.
Hmm.
They're technical. They think, oh, I grinded on leak code. I'm really good at SQL. I know my machine learning. Why do I need to prepare stuff about me? I can just go wing it. But
Yeah.
Aishwarya, so much of presenting yourself well in a behavioral interview
Yeah.
is just doing this really simple prep work. Because let's be honest, if you're in data, you're not a salesperson talking about yourself all day long. Maybe you're
Yeah.
not so confident in speaking. And let's be honest, some of the types of stuff you talk about are
Hmm.
about projects you did a year or two
Yeah.
ago for
Yeah.
which you're like blurry on the details, right?
Yeah.
So if you just do a little bit of prep work beforehand to really think about what are my main past work experiences, my main projects, and where did I deal with failure? Where did I deal with project delays? Where did I deal with tough personalities?
Yeah.
What am I most proud of in the project? And you really think about them and articulate them. You write them down or you like just
Yeah.
store it.
Yeah.
When it comes time to interview, they're not going to be surprising you with these kind of questions where it's like, oh, tell me
Agree.
about a failure, tell me about a setback. You're
Yeah.
going to already have stories ready to go. And here's another thing, Aishwarya, I think we've talked about this too, right?
Hmm.
Maybe there's this concept of over prepping. Maybe you'll sound robotic if you do too much work. Okay. And I think we've talked about this before. And here's
Yeah.
my advice for people who are thinking, oh, if I over prepare my talking points about myself, my elevator pitch, I'll just sound like a robot, like a
Yeah.
salesperson, not as a human. What I like to tell people is you wish you were that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wish you were so good that 2 minutes of prep work would make you deliver lines flawless. If you were, you should be Shah Rukh Khan or, you know, like an actor. Go be an actor then if you're that good. But let's be honest, I'm not that good at talking. Okay, and you probably aren't either. You
Yeah.
can afford to spend 2 minutes to learn
Yeah.
what's interesting about you, why you're a good fit for the job, how you've had to deal with failure, so that when you interview with these recruiters and hiring managers, you put your best foot forward and you don't just blank. And even worse than blanking is
Yeah.
rambling. People feel
I
awkward.
agree.
They just
Yeah.
sit there and then they just list random stuff. They try to hit
Yeah.
every point and they don't have a very good cohesive answer.
Yeah.
So this is what behavioral interviews look for. My book covers a lot of the same very popular behavioral interview questions that are asked. And anyways, online you can see, forget my book. I don't want to just keep plugging the book. You
Yeah.
can go look up common behavioral interview questions that are asked. But the
Yeah.
point is, if you just spend 2 minutes thinking of stories beforehand, you're gonna excel and really crush it.
Yeah, I agree. So one of the things I'll put in as one of the experiences that I have had, right? Like in few of the interviews that I've given, they generally ask you questions like, hey, how did you handle a tough situation? Or like how did you handle a conflict when in your team, etc. And that somewhere is important because when you are working for your current team and these situations arise, yes, your manager, your leadership, your teammates can see your performance, but this is not something which can be documented or can be like put on your resume, right? And these companies want to know like what's your risk management skills, and that's probably what they are looking for. Like there's no right or wrong answer for, like tell me about a situation when you managed a conflict or things like that, or how do you respond if you have a differing opinion with your teammates, etc. They want to assess that how do you approach problems, and like how do what's your personality in that. And that's very subjective to each and every person, and there's no like right or wrong answer for that. But why Nick is saying that you need to prepare is, if I'm going to ask you off the bat, hey, like tell me about a situation when there was a conflict in your team, or like there was a conflict of interest, that it might not come to you on top of your head. So instead of scratching your head for 10 minutes in front of the interviewer, you might as well prepare for it and think about, what kind of possible questions they might ask, and be ready with your experiences where you have experienced similar things.
Absolutely. You said it really well. Cool. Why don't we take a second and answer any questions? You guys go ahead and chat your questions if this is making sense. If it's not making sense, what are you guys curious about for the behavioral interview? What was confusing? Did it make sense about the three things that they're looking for? I just want to give you guys a second to ask something about the behavioral aspect of these interviews, which is really, really important as well. It's not just these technical skills. I know we're in a very tech driven field, but you're not working with robots, you're working with people, and as long as people are interviewing you, you're gonna have to have the behavioral part. Cool. Okay, so a lot of people are asking,
Hmm.
Yashwant, what has more scope in data science, CV or computer vision or natural language processing? I don't know. I really don't know, and I don't know. I I think both are good. Just do whatever you're interested in. I think I mean, if you have a PhD, like that's great, but I don't know. I mean, if you don't have a PhD, I'm not even sure why to worry about it so much because there's just so much scope for just general data scientists. So if you love computer vision, you get really good at it, it's fine. But like, there's just room for like good data scientists with all rounder skills. Like, it's not really crazy to be like, oh,
Yeah.
I need to be an NLP expert. And yeah, there are some positions for NLP only and some for just CV only. But there's just so many general data science ones that it's okay. You don't have to specialize on, especially if you don't have a PhD. You know, but yeah, I don't really have a good answer for that. Both are good. Both
Yeah.
are good, and do whichever one is more interesting to you. So I don't have an answer. Yeah.
Another thing, like I might just add on to what Yashwant is asking here, right? This is something come a lot to me, that how do you decide your specialization, or do you go for like being a general data scientist, or do you go for being an like product data scientist doing experimentation versus maybe like doing some client facing data science work, right? So how do you recommend that people find their niche there?
Yeah, so I think I people always ask me like, how do you're so passionate about what you're doing? How do I find your passion? How do you find an interest? Right. So let me tell you guys a story. Like the short answer is you just had to do stuff. You just had to do more stuff, right? So that's one of the things that I like to tell people. And I mean, it sounds obvious, but here's the thing, man. And this is a mindset thing again. We're gonna like step away from data science. We're gonna talk mindset because I think so many things are driven by mindset first, and then things will make sense after. Okay. First, the mindset should be the more things you try and the more things you do, the more you can yourself discover your passion and your interest.
Yeah,
Okay. And people always think like, okay, they think the question is, how do I find my passion? Because if I find my passion, then I'll do stuff. Like if
yeah,
someone just told me I'm passionate about NLP, then I'll make 11 NLP projects. But I think it's like completely misunderstanding what it means to be passionate about something, or how do you find your interest, or how do you find a field. You first have to just try a bunch of things, do things, and you fall into it, right? Like you might be thinking, like Nick, why am I writing the book Ace the Data Science Interview? Is that what I graduated or majored in college a few years ago? Did I set out to really do something like this? No. I just started writing on LinkedIn and people liked what I had to say on LinkedIn. And then I partnered up with my buddy who's a data scientist and we're just like, oh, it doesn't exist. Let's go and do it. And now our book's about data science. But I didn't set it to be like, hey, what's the scope of data science interviewing? What's the scope of career coaching? I didn't think about any of this. I just did what I liked and it saw what
yeah,
worked and
yeah,
kept diving into it, right? So that's
yeah,
another thing that I had to tell people is like, listen, like if you're someone with a lot of interest, go be a general data scientist. If you're someone who just loves NLP, go do NLP. But you can't ask me, Nick, how can I know if I like NLP? That's on you to go build an NLP project. It's all on Kaggle. Go build a CV project. Go do this. Go do that. Go do some data engineering. Go get good at SQL.
yeah,
And whichever thing you just hate doing, like let's say you really don't love math, maybe machine learning research is not for you.
yeah,
But let's say if you love SQL or if you love the data engineering aspect, then go be a data engineer. Like
yeah,
I can't give you that answer. All I can say is I did an internship in data science, data infra, and then software.
yeah,
Then when I started working, I worked at a big company at Facebook on the growth team. But then I joined a small startup. So that's another question people ask me, how do you know whether I should join a big company or startup? Well, I did both.
yeah,
And now I know I'm a startup person, right? Someone's like, how do you know if you like writing? I don't know. I just wrote on LinkedIn. I wrote a blog. And at some point I was just like, oh, this is like not terrible. I
yeah,
like it, you know?
yeah,
So I just always had to say like that first caveat. I know people are thinking like, yo, that's a stupid question. Like, Nick, just tell me the answer. But like all good things come from yourself, right? Like I can't give you an answer on what to study or do. It
yeah,
has to come from your inside.
yeah,
And the inside answer, again, I want to highlight,
yeah,
it's not something that just magically comes to you one day. It's just a product or a function of you having done so many things.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I've DJ'd, I built startups, I built portfolio projects, I've done marketing jobs, data science jobs, software. That's the only way I
yeah,
found myself doing this weird thing. You know
yeah,
what I mean? I didn't set out to do it.
yeah,
And most people who are kick ass at what they do, they don't set out to do it. They just see what sticks. And what you don't
yeah.
realize is people who are really amazing or really niche down, they didn't start that way. They just were
Absolutely. Yeah,
someone who did a lot of things and
yeah,
then found themselves in that position.
yeah. That's something like just like a quick bite from something I'm writing. So I'm working on a book right now, which is about like broader things in life. So one of the things that I say in the book is that be a jack of all trades before you master one. So you have to explore things for you to understand what you really like. And as you said, right, like people generally tell me that, hey, like how do I get my first internship, because all these big companies are asking for experience, or it's very difficult to crack. And that's where I say that big companies are not the only companies in the world. There are non-profit organizations who are doing amazing work. Like even right now I work with a non-profit organization called AI for Social Good, and go check out their website. They have like amazing projects going on all across the globe. And that's the opportunity that you have. Like not all your internships or all your projects have to be paid and with the big companies. If you're really looking for experience, you can there's enough opportunities out there for you.
Cool. I didn't know you were writing a book. We should talk about that offline. I know
We'll talk
something
about
about
that
that.
offline.
Yeah, yeah, that's very cool. Okay, we're not going to reveal it too much today. Speaking of which, when do you hit 250,000 followers?
Oh, we did last night. So
Oh,
let me share my screen. I wanted to show you something.
okay, sure. Let's take
Yeah.
this second.
Okay, so I there's a surprise coming in for everyone, I think. Okay, where did my tab go?
Yeah, while you figure that out, I'll answer Karthik's
Yeah.
question, and Harsh
Sure.
gave a great answer anyway. Harsh said, so the question was, what do you do if you haven't experienced that situation in a behavioral interview? And then Harsh wrote something really smart, which is use an example from school or something. So I think you can definitely get stumped on these, but like go online, or my book lists like 20 questions behavioral. Most of the time you are going to find something that you have seen, and
Yeah.
if not, it's going to be a flavor. So what you wrote was conflicting information, right? Like the question was, how would you answer a question like, what do you do when you had to deal with conflicting information, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about answering conflicting information, but I do know about conflicting personalities and conflicting like stakeholder like initiatives, right? And that's like a common question, right? So you just kind of like go on the fly and adapt it.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to tell you, like, I know it sounds daunting, like, okay, what if they ask me something I don't know? But generally, again, I'm telling you, things fall into a pattern, and like it's always about setbacks, delays, failures, other difficult people, or coming or positive aspects of it, which is like coming together to do
Yeah.
something awesome, or successes. Like there's only 5 or 6 patterns here, so I don't
Yeah,
know. I
there's a
wouldn't let
very
it
interesting
stump you.
question I wanted to like point you to that. So Jayati is asking that like she has 9 years of experience as a software engineer, and now she wants to move to machine learning engineering. So how does she showcase her existing skills as transferred skills? This I felt is like really really interesting.
Yeah, no, that's a really good skill question. And a lot of people who are data analysts are wanting to be data scientists, or data scientists trying to be software engineers, and then software engineers trying to be machine learning engineers. And I don't know what machine learning, I think everyone wants to do a PM too. Right? So that's like a dumb thing that unites everybody. Well, by the way, I think product management might be slightly overrated, but we can talk about that later. That's not today's stream. I'm not going to take a shit all over product management. Great question, right? So I think people will already know that you have a very good skill set around as a software engineer around source control, probably productionization of different things. What they're going to be looking for is, what's your math background? Like, do you actually understand not how to use scikit-learn and how to use APIs, but like, do you actually understand what's the basis behind linear regression? How does it work? So
Yeah.
I think to emphasize that, one thing to do is to be building more modeling heavy um, portfolio projects, right? That's one thing. The second thing is, in your own, maybe take like a class or two and just show that you did this Coursera class, and like mention it like, hey, like on my own, maybe under education, or like maybe somewhere at the top, you can just write like, hey, on my own, I took so and so class, where those classes are more like data science, mathy, machine learning heavy, and then be expected, like, in an interview themselves to grill you on it. But I think the best way to for software engineering to position themselves into ML jobs is to be just doing the machine learning themselves, right? So a data scientist might be able to do some modeling project, but they might not be able to productionize it. But a
Yeah.
good job, like a good big part of MLE, is to productionize things. So go make a standalone web app. Like go make a web app that actually like lets people take inputs and spits out an output with a that's some people might not be able to know how to do that and actually stand it up. So
Yeah.
see if you can make projects like that, and then go be more ambitious with that type of project. So I'll give you a more ambitious one. A simple one is, you enter your gender and age, and I'll spit out your predicted height. Okay, that's a very simple, let's say, linear regression model or something like that. Very simple, right? But let's go something crazier. Transfer learning is all the rage. Can you let me upload an image of my face, and then you transform it some way and spit out like a crazy selfie of me or something like that, or some kind of crazy face filter, sort of what
Mhm.
Snapchat and Instagram do?
Yeah.
right? And actually make it productionized so that I can upload and then spit it out. Because I already know data scientists will struggle in how do you handle an input of a file and output a file, like in terms of software
Yeah.
engineering, like how do
Yeah.
we actually build out a UI? But you as a software engineer are well positioned to handle that kind of problem, which is less about the machine learning part and more about like the productionization of whatever transfer learning algorithm you
Yeah.
use, right? So that's like a great way as a software engineering to show that you could be an MLE.
That's a great advice. So yeah, let's see if we have more questions there.
Oh, yeah, you wanted to share something as well? I was giving
Oh
you
yeah,
some.
I can put that out. Okay. So yes, we touched 250K followers on LinkedIn. This happened last night, and thank you so much for everybody to be very supportive. Thank you so much for acknowledging all the posts that I make, and I'm really glad that you find it helpful. So as a part of like thanking all of you guys, I thought we can do a giveaway, and couldn't think of a better book than Nick's book. So we are doing like a five book giveaways for five lucky followers. So I will be making a post about this later today, and please make sure that like you are commenting. I'll be of course like asking a question along with the post. So please answer that question in the comments, and I'll be choosing like five lucky followers who will be receiving a copy of Nick's book. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
it.
yeah, you got a sneak peek. It'll happen a little later today, but yeah. So thanks, Aish, for having me on and all
Yeah.
this. But I don't think we're done yet. We can go for 5 more minutes.
No,
We still have
we're
five
not
more
done yet.
minutes. Yeah, we're like
We have.
honestly, we should do this again because I didn't even talk about the actual data science on that.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
We can do a deep dive into the data science interviews, because I saw your deck and you had really structured it well with the product questions with stats and probability, etc. So we should definitely do another part two of mixing. So if you guys are interested in like having a deep dive into how the interviews would look like, how do you prepare for each and every round, please put in your inputs in the comments, that what are the rounds, or like what are the technical aspects which you would be looking for Nick to answer. So would it be around probability, would you need help around statistics, would you need help around behavioral or like coding round, etc. So we'll be doing another session for that. So put in your questions in the comment, so we can answer that in the second part of this conversation.
But yeah, I can just say for 2 minutes something though.
Mhm.
Like just I don't want to leave people. I mean, what are people most curious about right now
Yeah,
regarding interviews? Because I know today was supposed to be at the data science interview, and we just honestly talked more about getting the interviews in the first place and then the behavioral aspect. I would just say two things, and then we can always talk more in depth. One is most of these companies will ask a project walkthrough question. So that's where they're going to ask you about your past project and ask you to talk through what you worked on. And I think like that shouldn't surprise anybody, because anyone who's done interviews has been asked something like, oh, tell me about your last job, right? But I think what does surprise people is in data science, it can be quite technical because it can be like a jumping off point for more technical questions. For example, if they see you did a project with logistic regression, they might ask you, why didn't you use other techniques? How did you know it didn't overfit? If
yeah,
it did overfit, what did you do to prevent overfitting? And then suddenly you have this more detailed conversation around what's the actual work you did.
yeah,
And they're subtly testing you like, hey, do you even know about overfitting and how much of a problem it is? Or do you really know what else is comparable to logistic regression? Or is that the only
yeah,
thing you knew and you just threw it on there and you
yeah,
called it a day, right? So I
yeah,
think that's one big thing I want to talk about for data science interviews is like get ready to be talking about your projects. And again, don't let it surprise you. Practice ahead of time because you're not that good. You're not a salesperson. You can't just spit game and talk about how awesome you did. And especially if your projects were a year ago or 2 years ago, or like it was your previous job, it's so easy to forget about what you actually did.
mhm,
That's my one tip I would say for
yeah,
the project walkthrough questions, which are going to be asked in pretty much any data science interview. The second tip I have is lead with the business of value first.
yeah,
Lead with the context and what actually happened. So let me give you an example of a woman I worked with who was interviewing for Google. She was a data scientist at a medical devices company, and she started just talking about how she looked at survival analysis of a medical device that did so and so, and I did so and so technique and regression, blah blah blah. I could not understand her for the life of me. And guys, I know data science, so it's like, and I know her as a person, and I actually know what company she worked at because it's a smaller startup founded by people from my alma mater, the University of Virginia. So I happen to know what device she was talking about, but the way she delivered her answer, she just got right into the technical detail. But
Yeah.
let's be honest, again, you're human. You're interviewing with someone at Facebook and Google. They're all day working at such a small problem. They don't have context on what you worked on or what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So be okay starting at a high level when you talk about your project, right? So it turned out this woman, she worked on a project for a company that's making a male contraceptive that you
Mhm.
put in, and for 2 years, you're good to go. You don't need to do anything else. Okay. And I was like, why didn't you just say that? Why didn't you just say, hey, I worked on a male contraceptive, and the
Yeah.
biggest question about this medical device is how long does it last? How long
Yeah.
is it effective? So I did survival analysis.
Hmm.
Boom. You just motivated why you did survival analysis rather than diving deep into all these technical details. You just set the stage for, oh, that's really interesting. Male contraceptive. Oh, yeah, survival analysis. That makes sense. I want that thing to work for a while. I don't want it to just go bad without me knowing. Otherwise, you're going to
Yeah.
end up with a kid that you
Yeah.
didn't know you had.
Yeah.
So, um, I mean, this was a funny example, but I'm just trying to say
Yeah.
it's so easy to jump into technical things.
Yeah.
And I think that's another way to just show off yourself and like have your interviewer understand why you're a good fit, why great work is if they can understand
Yeah.
your project in the first place. So that's sort of borderline a technical interview tip, but also sort of like behavioral in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's totally right. So Nick, let's do a second section of this video, so where we can dig in deeper with technical rounds. And stay tuned, like all of you. If you have more questions, feel free to put it on the YouTube video, which is going to be uploaded after the session. So we will be going back, looking at your questions, and we'll try to answer all of them in the second video that we'll have.
Yep, and I'll go back on the comments on this live stream as well and answer what I can. I'll of course follow me on LinkedIn. I post and talk a lot about this kind of stuff anyway. I'm not as big
Then
as
put it
Aish.
on
I only
screen.
have like 63,000
Follow him
followers,
on
but
this link.
I'm working my way up. And then of course my book, 290 pages. It's all about everything I'm talking about and so much more. And if you're in India, there's some free resources on my website, nicksingh.com, as well as acethedatascienceinterview.com, and I'm working to get it out in India and other international markets sooner than later. So, yeah, just want to let
Perfect.
you guys know that. Cool.
This is great.
Awesome.
Thank you so
This was
much,
so
Nick.
much fun. Thanks. And we're going to do it again soon.
Yes,
Awesome.
absolutely.
All right.
Thanks a
Bye.
lot. Have a good one, everyone.